You have no power over me. The battle over the Kennedy Center reveals how divided sovereignty allows every faction to exercise power, while leaving nobody responsible for the result. The bronze letters are waiting somewhere in Washington. Perhaps they are resting in a contractor's warehouse, wrapped in brown paper and stacked beside a crate of electrical fixtures. Perhaps they exist only as a drawing, 7 words rendered in a tasteful serif font for approval by a committee. Perhaps no metal has been cast. In Washington, an object can remain imaginary for years while generating invoices, hearings, injunctions, legal memoranda, and stern statements from people who have never held a wrench. The proposed inscription reads, "Restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump." 7 words. A boast, certainly. Also, a receipt. Before those words can be fastened beneath the familiar sign at the Kennedy Center, they must pass through a gauntlet of trustees, judges, legislators, preservation rules, donor pressure, artist boycotts, administrative procedure, and public outrage. The letters have entered the invisible court. There they will be weighed by people who possess enough authority to delay them, though perhaps not enough authority to decide what should happen instead. That distinction matters. A maintenance supervisor named Daniel received the revised closure schedule on a Thursday afternoon. His name is fictional. His position is not. Every monumental building contains a Daniel, the man expected to understand the difference between a political announcement and a mechanical deadline. The main building is supposed to close for extensive repairs. The public figure attached to the project is roughly $250 million. The roof needs attention. Mechanical systems have aged. Public spaces must be repaired. Construction crews require access. Performances must be displaced, postponed, or moved. Contracts need revision. Staff members want to know whether they will still have jobs 6 months from now. Daniel opens the schedule. It contains dates, contingencies, and several phrases that have been drafted for the express purpose of surviving contact with attorneys. Work is expected to begin subject to review. Operations will cease pending final authorization. Access will be restricted, except where required. The plan is definite in every place where definiteness carries no legal consequence. Daniel calls the project office. The project office tells him the board has approved the closure. He asks whether the court has approved it. The project office says that is being evaluated. He calls the legal office. The legal office explains that it cannot advise him directly because the question must be routed through management. Management sends him back to the project office. By 4:30, Daniel has learned that the building will close unless it remains open. The renovation will proceed unless it is restrained, and his department must prepare for both outcomes without spending money that has not been released. The palace has spoken. It has said, perhaps. This is the ordinary face of divided sovereignty. It does not usually arrive wearing a crown. It arrives as an email with 6 people copied and no sentence written in the active voice. The Kennedy Center Board has approved Trump's inscription, renamed the surrounding plaza for him, and voted to close the main building during the renovation. A federal judge had already blocked an earlier renaming and closure plan. The court found that the board lacked authority to rename a memorial established by Congress and objected to the manner in which the closure had been pursued. The board returned with another plan. That is how Washington says good morning. To the public, the dispute appears to concern Donald Trump's appetite for seeing his name on buildings. He likes his name in gold, stone, glass, print, and any other medium capable of surviving a television camera. This observation is accurate. It is also about as penetrating as noticing that a peacock has feathers. Trump is hardly the first public figure to place his name on a building. Kennedy accepted the presidency before accepting the memorial. Lincoln had the courtesy to die before his name was carved across the Capitol. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Ford, Getty, and Guggenheim scattered their names across American culture like men leaving property markers for God. Patronage has always left fingerprints on masonry. The difference is that older patrons often allowed death, family foundations, and respectable committees to soften the transaction. The money arrived first. The modesty came 2 generations later. Trump removes the softening agent. He wants the sign to identify the patron while the concrete is still wet. That vulgarity has a clarifying effect. The inscription forces the country to ask a question that polite management prefers to leave unanswered. Who owns the Kennedy Center? Congress created it. The president appoints its trustees. The trustees govern it. Private donors support much of its programming. Taxpayers maintain the building. Artists supply the performances. Journalists distribute prestige. Judges define the boundaries of action. Audiences decide whether the seats are filled. Everyone has a key. Nobody admits to owning the door. The Kennedy Center began as the National Cultural Center under legislation signed by Dwight Eisenhower in 1958. After John F. Kennedy was assassinated, Congress renamed it and made it a living memorial. Federal money, private gifts, presidential patronage, foreign contributions, and elite cultural ambition flowed together to build the place. Italy supplied Carrara marble. Jacqueline Kennedy supplied glamour. Congress supplied appropriations. The taxpayers supplied what taxpayers usually supply after the marble arrives: maintenance. The center became a public-private creature. Ticket sales and donors supported artistic programming. The federal government assumed much of the burden for capital repairs and upkeep. Congress defined the center's purpose. Trustees managed its affairs. Presidents appointed trustees. Cultural professionals developed the customs that governed programming. The arrangement looked balanced because nobody tried to pull hard on every rope at once. Then Trump arrived and pulled. He replaced trustees. He became chairman. He changed the center's direction. He sought to attach his name to the place. The court said the board lacked authority to rename a memorial created by Congress. The board revised its approach. Artists withdrew. Legislators objected. Journalists declared the capture of a national cultural body. The building became a constitutional diagram drawn in Carrara marble. Curtis Yarvin has spent much of his career asking readers to locate the sovereign. His demand is impolite because it cuts through the pageantry of official government. Forget for a moment who ought to rule. Find the person or body capable of making a decision and compelling everyone else to live with it. If a higher power can reverse your decision, punish you, remove you, or deprive you of the means to act, that higher power is closer to sovereignty than you are. Apply that test to the Kennedy Center. Trump controls the board, except when a judge blocks it. The judge can block the board, though he cannot repair the roof. Congress can amend the law, though it may prefer silence. Artists cannot issue legal commands, though they can empty the calendar. Donors cannot formally govern, though they can starve the programming. Journalists possess no statutory authority, though their coverage can make cooperation socially expensive. The audience can refuse to buy tickets, though it cannot select the trustees. Power exists everywhere. Responsibility evaporates between the points. This is the labyrinth concealed inside the concert hall. It has no minotaur. Minotaurs are straightforward. They stand in one place and eat whoever reaches the center. Our labyrinth contains a series of pleasant offices, each staffed by people explaining that another office has the authority you seek. A citizen enters believing that public ownership means public command. He soon discovers that the public is a ceremonial sovereign. It owns the center in roughly the same sense that a child owns the school district. The property is held in his name. He cannot sell it, direct it, rename it, dismiss its managers, choose its performances, or demand a refund. He is permitted to feel represented. The building itself becomes a false temple of authority. Its marble suggests permanence. Its plaques suggest memory. Its trustees suggest stewardship. Its appropriations suggest democratic control. Its donor galas suggest private patronage. Its programming suggests professional independence. Each suggestion is true. Together, they form a machine that can exercise power without locating it. The inscription threatens this arrangement because a name collapses ambiguity. Restored and renovated by President Donald J. Trump tells the visitor who claims credit. It also identifies the man who should receive blame if the closure drags on, the cost doubles, the craftsmanship fails, or the reopened center resembles a campaign ballroom with better acoustics. A named patron can be judged. A process requests another appropriation. This is why the letters inspire such anxiety. They threaten to make power legible, and legible power raises the indecent possibility of accountability. Yet they also raise another question, one the proposed patron may prefer to avoid. If Trump's name belongs on the restoration, does his name belong on the bill when it goes wrong? The letters are waiting. So is the answer. Strip away the marble now. The Kennedy Center is an operating structure built from statutes, appointments, appropriations, contracts, donations, customs, reputational pressure, and vetoes. Its confusion begins because these instruments distribute different kinds of power to different parties without placing final responsibility anywhere. Congress controls the statutory identity of the center. It created the memorial, defined its public purpose, and retains the power to alter the governing law. That is ownership by legislation, though Congress does not supervise rehearsals, select performances, or replace a failed boiler. The president influences the center through appointments. Appointment power can look ceremonial when presidents select trustees acceptable to the existing cultural class. It becomes unmistakably political when a president appoints loyalists willing to reverse the center's direction. The trustees possess formal governing power. They vote, they choose managers, they approve plans. Their authority depends upon the law that created the center, the money available to them, and the willingness of other parties to cooperate. Management controls daily operations. This is where general commands become schedules, contracts, staff assignments, maintenance plans, and programming decisions. Managers often possess more practical knowledge than trustees. That knowledge can become a hidden veto because a board cannot direct what it cannot see. The federal government supplies money for the building. Appropriations carry restrictions, reporting duties, and political exposure. Private donors support programming. Their gifts may carry expectations, conditions, or quiet understandings. A donor does not need a formal veto when the executive director knows which production will close the checkbook. Artists control the scarce resource upon which the center's cultural purpose depends. A building without performers is an unusually expensive hallway. Artists can withdraw. Agencies can steer clients elsewhere. Unions can enforce contracts. Prestigious performers can impose reputational costs through public refusal. The press converts each action into status. A journalist cannot cancel a renovation contract, but coverage can influence donors, artists, audiences, legislators, and judges. Prestige operates as a routing system. It directs cooperation toward approved parties and away from condemned ones. The courts interpret the legal boundaries. A judge can freeze a plan, invalidate a decision, or require a new procedure. Judicial action can restrain unlawful command. It can also leave the operating problem unresolved. The court may say what the board cannot do without assuming the burden of deciding what the center must do next. Each actor controls one piece of the machine. The result is government by interlocking veto. This system did not require a secret meeting. Nobody needed to gather in a candlelit basement beneath Georgetown and decide that the Kennedy Center should become impossible to govern. The structure emerged because each participant responded to a defensible incentive. Congress wanted a national memorial without running a theater from Capitol Hill. Presidents wanted appointment power without personal liability for every canceled ballet. Trustees wanted authority without being treated as public employees. Donors wanted influence without assuming ownership. Artists wanted independence without financing the building. Judges wanted to enforce the law without managing construction. Managers wanted room to operate without surrendering professional control to every political appointee. Journalists wanted to judge the center without admitting that cultural judgment is a form of power. Every party's position makes sense from inside its office. The whole becomes predatory because the cost of conflict falls upon people outside those offices. Daniel, the maintenance supervisor, must plan for incompatible outcomes. Employees must tolerate uncertainty. Contractors price legal delay into their bids. Taxpayers fund repeated studies. Audiences lose performances. Smaller arts groups scramble for replacement venues. The renovation acquires layers of contingency, and each layer costs money. Delay creates revenue for certain participants. Attorneys bill hours. Consultants revise assessments. Contractors charge for remobilization. Administrators justify continued employment through the complexity of the process. None of these people must desire delay. They need only be paid in a manner that protects them from its cost. Opacity protects everyone. If responsibility were clear, failure would have an address. In the divided structure, each party can point to a constraint imposed by another. The board blames the statute. Management blames the board. Congress blames the president. The president blames the judge. The judge cites Congress. Donors blame programming. Programmers blame politics. Artists blame the board. Responsibility circles the building without finding an unlocked entrance. Yarvin's formalism begins with the effort to make recognized authority correspond with actual power. Put every power beside a name. Put every name beside a liability. If a board governs, allow it to govern and record its decisions. If Congress owns the memorial's name, say so plainly. If donors direct programming, disclose the conditions. If management possesses operational command, define its scope. If a court blocks an action, state what lawful options remain. This approach has a severe appeal because it treats concealed power as a defect. Modern managerial systems prefer concealed power. They often speak through passive constructions because grammar can perform the same work as institutional design. Mistakes were made. Concerns were raised. The proposal did not move forward. Funding was unavailable. The decision underwent review. The sentence contains an event without an actor. Language launders command. Trump's inscription runs in the opposite direction. It names the actor in letters large enough to be photographed from a tourist boat. This is partly vanity. Vanity can accidentally perform a public service. A rooster may be insufferable and still announce the morning. The center's earlier cultural order concealed command beneath professional custom. Curators, administrators, donors, critics, and artists made judgments about what deserved the national stage. They selected works, handed out honors, commissioned performances, planned educational programs, and chose which cultural tendencies would receive public dignity. These decisions were political in the oldest sense. They concern the character of the common life. The word political is often reserved for decisions made by officials whom cultural professionals dislike. A production selected by a curator is artistic judgment. A production rejected by a Trump-appointed board is political interference. The distinction is convenient enough to keep in a desk drawer. A national cultural center is political before the first violin is tuned. It distinguishes excellence from rubbish. It tells the country what deserves remembrance. It elevates certain artists into official memory. It places some works before ambassadors, presidents, school children, donors, and television audiences. Status is a currency of rule. Yarvin's cathedral describes the distributed network through which professional consensus becomes power. Universities, newspapers, foundations, museums, non-profits, publishers, and arts bodies need no central command. Their leaders pass through similar schools, share personnel, depend upon overlapping donors, read the same prestige press, and recognize the same moral vocabulary. Consensus travels through hiring, invitation, funding, promotion, and exclusion. The system works because its participants are often sincere. A curator may truly believe that professional standards require one production and disqualify another. A journalist may honestly regard one appointment as legitimate and another as corrupt. A donor may feel a moral duty to withdraw support. Sincerity does not dissolve power. It can make power harder to see. A corrupt official knows that he is exercising control. A sincere professional believes that reality itself has endorsed his preferences. Before Trump, the Kennedy Center operated within a settlement. Presidents held appointment power on paper. Cultural professionals exercised broad discretion in practice. Trustees generally chose people acceptable to the inherited order. Political officials possessed the legal keys. The cultural class selected the music. Trump broke the settlement by converting latent authority into active command. He replaced trustees, removed managers, altered priorities, and treated the center as a possession of the office that appointed its board. He exposed a gap between formal authority and cultural legitimacy. The president could act. The cultural class could deny cooperation. The court could restrain him. Congress could settle the dispute, but preferred to hover above it like a chandelier with subpoena power. This is where the line from the villain acquires its force. You have no power over me. Sarah speaks those words to Jareth at the end of Labyrinth. He has built a kingdom from bargains, delays, shifting corridors, false clocks, and emotional dependency. His power rests upon her willingness to accept the rules of his maze. Once she recognizes the governing phrase, his palace begins to break. Every party in the Kennedy Center dispute speaks some version of that line. The board says it to the former cultural managers. The court says it to the board. Congress says it to the court by retaining the power to rewrite the law. Artists say it to the trustees by withdrawing. Donors say it by withholding money. The president says it to professional custom. Professional custom says it to electoral command. Nobody possesses enough power to rule. Everybody possesses enough power to refuse. That is the distinction between sovereignty and veto. Sovereignty can complete an action and bear judgment for the result. A veto can prevent completion while transferring the consequences elsewhere. Modern systems multiply vetoes because veto power offers influence with limited liability. The veto holder can stop the machine without becoming responsible for operating it. This arrangement rewards obstruction. Suppose the renovation succeeds. The president claims credit. The board cites its leadership. Congress points to federal funding. Managers praise their planning. Donors praise their support. Each actor appears in the reopening photograph. Suppose it fails. The president cites litigation. The board cites statutory restrictions. Congress cites executive mismanagement. Managers cite political interference. Contractors cite change orders. Donors cite declining confidence. Artists cite cultural damage. Failure belongs to the weather. This is why oversight is not management matters. A sound structure separates operating command from the power of removal. A board chooses the executive, defines the mission, reviews performance, and dismisses the executive after failure. It does not reach into daily operations every few minutes. When overseers participate in every decision, they become managers without accepting managerial liability. The Kennedy Center has several overseers, each reaching toward the wheel. Congress supervises through law and money. The board supervises management. Courts supervise legality. Donors supervise through funding. Artists supervise through cooperation. The press supervises legitimacy. The presidency supervises through appointments. The driver's seat has become a committee bench. Clearer authority would help, though clarity alone cannot supply good judgment. A single executive could repair the building quickly and ruin the center's cultural purpose with equal speed. A king may have terrible taste. A chief executive may turn a national monument into a gift shop with columns. A well-labeled catastrophe remains a catastrophe. Formalism answers who decides. It cannot fully answer what the decision should serve. That omission becomes dangerous when the building under dispute is a national arts center. Its purpose cannot be measured solely through construction cost, ticket revenue, or donor retention. It exists to preserve and present works of greatness. It should cultivate memory, judgment, skill, and beauty. Those ends require moral and artistic standards. If Trump wishes to act as patron, he must become a patron. He must commission worthy work, preserve the nation's inheritance, reward gifted artists, repair the building competently, and resist converting every stage into an annex of his political brand. Removing former stewards creates a vacancy. It does not fill one. Gold letters cannot sing. The deepest weakness in Trump's capture concerns succession. He may control the appointment structure today. Another president may control it tomorrow. A future administration could replace his trustees, dismiss his managers, reverse the programming, remove the inscription, and restore the former cultural settlement. The same central power that permits Trump to seize the center permits his successor to seize it back. This is conquest without succession. Every serious order must answer the question of who comes next. Personal force can carry an organization for a season. Structure determines what remains after the founder leaves, weakens, dies, or becomes fascinated by another project. Trump has demonstrated that presidential appointment power can redirect a cultural body. He has not produced the patrons, composers, dramatists, architects, teachers, donors, critics, and audiences required to maintain a cultural order. Taking a building can be done in an afternoon. Producing a civilization worthy of it may consume centuries. That brings us back to Daniel and his schedule. He does not need another theory of sovereignty. He needs to know whether the doors will close on Monday. Yet the theory explains why nobody can answer him. He works inside a system where authority has been divided into fragments, each sharp enough to cut and too small to build with. The machine survives because those fragments make responsibility impossible to assemble. To deal with it, Daniel must learn its grammar. First, he must stop asking who is in charge. That question invites ceremonial answers. He needs a map of decisions. Who can authorize the closure? Who can release funds? Who can suspend a contract? Who can issue binding legal guidance? Who can reverse each decision? Which directive controls if two directives conflict? He should request answers in writing. A useful sentence would read, "Please identify the office with final authority to approve the closure date and provide the governing resolution, order, or statutory provision." That sentence removes the fog. It does not ask for an opinion. It asks for an office, an authority, and a document. He should maintain a decision ledger. Each entry needs the date, the instruction, the person issuing it, the authority cited, the operational consequence, and any conflicting direction. Emails should be saved outside a crowded inbox in a folder organized by decision rather than sender. The closure decision belongs in one folder. Funding authorization belongs in another. Court restrictions belong in a third. Contractor notices belong beside the directive that caused them. When verbal instructions affect money, safety, employment, or contract performance, Daniel should send a written confirmation. To confirm our conversation, I understand that the department is directed to prepare for closure on October 1st, while refraining from irreversible expenditures until written funding authority is issued. Please correct this understanding by 3 p.m. tomorrow. Silence then becomes evidence. The phrase is calm. It contains no accusation. It gives the other party an opportunity to correct the record. It also prevents a manager from later claiming that Daniel misunderstood a hallway conversation. When two offices issue conflicting commands, he should avoid choosing between them privately. Private choice transfers institutional conflict onto the employee. He should route the contradiction upward. The attached directives appear to require incompatible actions. Legal directs continued operations, while the project office directs shutdown preparation. Please provide a controlling instruction and identify which office accepts responsibility for schedule and cost consequences. The last clause matters. Systems become less philosophical when asked to accept a bill. Daniel should calculate the cost of uncertainty. If maintaining two schedules requires extra labor, contractor standby fees, storage costs, or lost bookings, those numbers belong in the record. Administrative confusion thrives when its cost remains invisible. A weekly uncertainty report can state what has been spent, what decision is pending, and what cost will arise if no decision is made by a certain date. He should use deadlines tied to consequences. If authorization is not received by September 15th, the contractor cannot guarantee mobilization by October 1st, and the quoted price may change. This is stronger than begging for a prompt response. It lets the calendar speak with a knife in its pocket. He should read the governing documents, the enabling statute, board resolutions, court orders, appropriations language, contracts, bylaws, and delegated authority memoranda matter more than public statements. A press conference can announce intent. A signed instrument creates command. Every organization contains an official chart and an actual chart. The official chart shows titles. The actual chart records vetoes. Daniel should mark both. If a donor can halt a program, that is a veto. If the General Counsel can freeze expenditures, that is a veto. If the board chair can replace the executive, that is removal power. If Congress must approve a name change, that is statutory control. If management filters all information reaching the board, that is informational control. Money, data, appointments, removal, access, and reputation form the hidden chart. Once he understands the chart, Daniel should escalate in stages. He begins with the responsible office. If it cannot answer, he asks for the office possessing final authority. If conflicting commands remain, he requests written resolution from senior management or council. If safety, law, or public money is at risk, he uses the formal reporting channel created for that purpose. He should never threaten broadly. Vague threats turn a procedural dispute into a contest of pride. He should state the next lawful action. If the authority question remains unresolved, I will refer the matter to the General Counsel for a written determination before issuing operational orders. A precise escalation is harder to portray as insubordination. Citizens confronting the center from outside can use the same method. They should read board minutes, inspect recorded votes, examine appropriations, identify donor restrictions where disclosed, and distinguish legal authority from cultural pressure. When an official claims that the center decided, The citizen should ask who voted, what instrument authorized the act, and who can reverse it. If the board governs, publish the vote. If Congress controls the name, cite the statute. If a judge blocks the closure, identify the remedy. If donors shape the calendar, disclose the dependents. If nobody possesses enough authority to complete the work, repair the structure before pouring another $250 million into it. The wider lesson applies to churches, companies, nonprofits, local parties, schools, and professional societies. A church may formally belong to the parish, while one donor controls every major project by threatening to close his checkbook. A department head may supposedly manage staff, while human resources can reverse every personnel decision. A nonprofit may have an elected board, while the executive controls all information reaching it. Map the vetoes, then place responsibility beside them. The lawful answer to hostile cultural command is ownership. Build and acquire assets under clearer governance. Purchase buildings. Establish journals, schools, theaters, archives, studios, festivals, and patron circles. Define their purpose in the charter. Publish accounts. Record decisions. Keep operating reserves. Train successors while the founder is still lucid enough to understand that mortality includes him. Do not create a structure that can be captured by a single frightened donor, or inherited by a committee whose chief qualification is attendance. The right has spent decades asking hostile cultural bodies for fairness. Fairness is a weak foundation for a building. Acquire the deed. There is danger in this knowledge. Once a man learns to see the hidden chart, he can manipulate it. He can exploit conflicting instructions, control the flow of information, cultivate veto holders, and make other people bear the cost of his decisions. He can become the most capable creature in the labyrinth. He can also become its next keeper. Clear sight does not grant moral permission. That is the line the villain crosses. Jareth understands the labyrinth because he built it. He knows the shortcuts, the false doors, the clocks that lie, and the bargains whose wording conceals their price. His intelligence is real. His corruption begins when he decides that another person's confusion entitles him to obedience. The operator inside a bureaucracy faces the same temptation. He discovers that delayed information creates dependency. He learns that a carefully placed ambiguity can transfer liability. He sees that controlling the meeting agenda can control the decision. Soon he stops using these facts as medicine against the machine. He begins feeding with them. Suspicion becomes a permanent posture. Every colleague becomes a proxy. Every friendship becomes access. Every favor becomes leverage. Every silence becomes a tactic. The man who once wanted freedom from manipulation starts treating human beings as pieces on the actual chart. He tells himself that he is merely realistic. The machine says the same thing. A bureaucracy rarely announces that it intends to humiliate anyone. It cites procedure. A manipulator rarely admits that he enjoys control. He cites necessity. Both convert a limited tool into a moral theory. Use the map to protect people from divided command. Do not use it to make them dependent upon you. Keep records so that truth survives. Do not collect private mistakes as ammunition. Name responsibility so that problems can be repaired. Do not assign blame merely to preserve your own image. Build ownership so that good work can continue. Do not treat possession as proof of virtue. Exercise authority in proportion to duty. The man who receives command also receives judgment. That second inheritance is less decorative, which explains why it is often misplaced during the ceremony. This is where Yarvin's account requires a moral boundary. Clear authority can reduce drift, concealment, and administrative exhaustion. It can also concentrate appetite. A named ruler may be judged, but judgment after ruin is cold comfort to those beneath him. Authority must serve an end beyond itself. In a Christian account, the ruler holds power under judgment. He must preserve inheritance, restrain predation, reward excellence, protect the weak, and hand the order onward without pawning the silverware. The sovereign who recognizes no law above appetite has escaped one labyrinth by becoming another. Trump's inscription may make responsibility visible. Visibility alone cannot make the patron worthy. The work beneath the name must survive inspection. The building must be repaired. The artists must deserve the stage. The public money must be guarded. The national memory must be treated as an inheritance rather than stage dressing. A receipt proves that a transaction occurred. It does not prove that the purchase was wise. Daniel returns to the schedule late in the evening. The offices have emptied. The marble halls are quiet. Somewhere behind the walls, pumps continue moving water through old pipes. Electrical panels hum. Air passes through ducts laid out by men whose names do not appear above the entrance. The building is still open. For the moment. Daniel has received one more email. Senior management has acknowledged the conflicting directives. Legal counsel will provide a controlling determination. No irreversible expenditures are authorized until then. The project office must document any schedule consequences. It is a small victory. No trumpet sounds. No bronze letters descend from the ceiling. The system has become visible, though. Its commands have names. Its contradictions have dates. Its delay has a price. The maze is smaller once its walls are measured. "You have no power over me" is not a declaration that power has vanished. Sarah still stands inside the labyrinth when she speaks it. Jareth still possesses the castle, the clock, the creatures, and the bargain. What breaks is the claim that his rules are absolute. The Kennedy Center dispute offers the same lesson. Presidents have power, boards have power, courts have power, Congress has power. Donors, artists, journalists, managers, and audiences have power. The trouble begins when each faction disguises its portion as neutrality and its veto as virtue. Put every power beside a name. Put every name beside a liability. Then look at the inscription. If Trump restored the building, let the letters record the claim. If he damaged it, let them preserve the evidence. A ruler who demands the monument must accept the receipt. The bronze letters are still waiting. Washington may keep them waiting for years. Delay is the city's native art form, performed daily before an audience required to finance the theater. Yet the words have already done their work. They have exposed the building as a seat of power. They have forced the patrons, judges, trustees, legislators, artists, and custodians to reveal which keys they possess. The door remains contested. At least we can see the hands upon it. This is the phantom of the toll booth. Good luck navigating the system.